This week marks 1 year since tragedy struck in West Texas. It was the first mobile mass shooting in the U.S., and it has drastically changed how law enforcement handles crime today. We have a special look in DBL's True Crime Chronicles, but we do want to warn you, some of this footage is graphic.
We have an active shooter on the interstate westbound.
It was an hour of pure chaos.
Things were moving so quickly, changing so rapidly.
It all started with a routine traffic stop. A Texas state trooper pulled over 36-year-old Seth Atour. He then shot and killed the trooper and proceeded to drive and fire.
It was not somebody going into a store or a building like we've seen in the past. It was a mobile threat.
Along the way, he hijacked a USPS car, killing the letter carrier, innocent bystanders, and continued to fire while driving from Odessa to Midland, Texas.
As soon as they drove off, it seemed like the police were everywhere. And we started hearing reports that, there was more shootings over at Market Street, Bubba's and Twin Peaks, Walmart.
911 operators were flooded with calls. There were reports of multiple victims across 25 different locations. Police departments and call centers were struggling to communicate. Police channels were speaking over each other as the scene changed by the minute.
The problem here was that mobility, and it occurred over a much longer period of time.
Officers were initially unsure if the shootings were related or where to respond. 7 people died and 25 were hurt.
They weren't able to stop the bad guy with a gun this time until he murdered my brother, and I don't want this to happen again.
Officers eventually caught up with Seth outside a movie theater in Odessa, where they shot and killed him. An hour of pure chaos for families.
I never thought it was going to happen to mine until it did.
And an hour of pure frustration at the lack of communication between agencies.
This shooting is definitely different.
Could better communication have prevented this tragedy? It's an entirely new scenario officers are now learning from and adapting to in West Texas.
Earlier, Tori and Jeff spoke with a journalist who was reporting live on air as the shooting was happening. Take a look.
We're joined by anchor and reporter Dana Morris from News West 9 in Midland, Texas. Thank you so much, Dana, for joining us. Now, this is crazy, but you were anchoring on the air when everything was happening live. And we do a live show here, and it is difficult at times. What sticks with you most about that day?
Well, you're right. I had to anchor for, I think, about 6 hours that day as all this information was kind of pouring in. But if I'm being honest, what really stuck with me that day were the moments right before I started anchoring, because in a smaller station that I'm in, it was really just me and the sports guy, and our phones started ringing off the hook to the point where I couldn't even put the phone down without having to pick it back up because hundreds of calls were coming in. And with that in mind, I knew there was a serious issue going on, but it was when the district attorney personally called my cell phone, it just really changed the whole perspective of what was happening.
Wow.
Now, Dana, police admitted there was a huge lack of communication that day. So what did they learn and how are they improving? What actually changed?
Well, in dealing with a situation like this, I don't think anyone's prepared for exactly to handle something like this. I mean, this was a mobile mass shooting. This guy started in one county and traveled to another county. And I don't think any police departments are ready to really take on the scope of the response that was needed here. Were they a little unprepared as far as a county-to-county response? I believe so, but it's something that they did address. We know that in the coming weeks afterwards, they went and upgraded they spent a few $100,000, I believe, and they upgraded the system to something that allows them to kind of pipeline all their information into one center when an event like this happens, so everyone can kind of be on the same page, whether it be the sheriff's office, the college police, the university police, or just the city police departments. And they've also went and upgraded their system as a mass notification system that residents and citizens can sign up for. So again, God forbid anything like that were to happen again out here, they would get direct alerts from law enforcement through that notification system.
It's not just police that change, it's the community. So Dana, a year later, how has your community come out? Are they stronger? Are they more fearful?
What I've seen, though, is that this community, despite all the hardships and all the restrictions and all the things that we're dealing with right now, people are still taking time to remember this anniversary and how impactful it was, on both of our communities, Midland and Odessa. And seeing that, it makes me feel that people haven't forgotten and people still care. And I think people have grown stronger and, again, closer knit and more caring of one another after something so dramatic and so tragic happened in this community.
It's the only silver lining. Thank you so much, Dana. Well said. For the latest on this case and to learn more, visit newswest9.com. You can also listen to a new podcast episode out about this day. It should be fascinating. Just search True Crime Chronicles on your favorite podcast player.